Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Coffin. I'm here at the May 2019 edition of the Metal Investor Forum in Vancouver. I'm here with John Black, CEO of Regulus Resources, one of the companies that I invited to the Metal Investor Forum. Regulus, as you may or may not know, has been drilling very successfully on the AntaKori project in Peru. Very large-scale copper-gold system. Definitely still growing, and the pace of the drilling is about to start increasing again. We're going to talk about that, and I'll get John to talk to us about where the drilling's moving to. This is already a substantial resource. They put out a resource estimate recently, but there's a lot of room for it to get bigger. But one topic I wanted to touch on first, it's not something I'm particularly worried about, but it comes up all the time. I know it comes up all the time for you too, I'm sure. You've got a couple of different mineralization styles here. The high sulfidation style does have a lot of arsenic in the material, but I think it's important for people to understand that this is not a AntaKori problem. This is a regional problem, and it's something that is in fact being dealt with successfully at a number of operations in the region. It's not that unusual to see this.
Okay, yeah, you're absolutely right, and thanks for the opportunity to be here again this year. But with the arsenic issue on this, we're taking a couple approaches to this. For the past year and for this drill campaign this year, what we're really focusing on is finding out the full extent of the deposit. As we move to the north, we anticipate, and we've already seen, that we're getting into cleaner skarn and porphyry style mineralization. So one of the best things we can do is define more mineralization that has less arsenic. There's a temptation to say that you could blend that material back with the high sulfidation. The high sulfidation is pretty arsenic rich, so blending your way out of it's not necessarily the best scenario on property. But increasingly we're seeing worldwide that there are marketers that are taking cons from different sources and blending to feed to the smelters. As you mentioned, worldwide arsenic content in concentrates are coming up. So this is a challenge for a lot of groups on this. We're seeing almost every major mining company is pursuing technology to be able to handle this themselves. You can either go through pyrometallurgy like a roaster, or you can go through hydromet pressure oxidation type systems. And so what we're seeing in the immediate neighborhood are some of our neighbors tackling this because they have this high arsenic type mineralization. Buenaventura, which is one of the joint venture partners next door, they have an argite con they produce from their Brocal mine, and they've developed their own technology to be able to process that material. They've got it advanced pilot stage, and they view they'll be able to handle an argite or arsenic rich cons from Brocal, as well as probably tantalite sulfides when they move into those. And probably more interesting to us right now is that it's publicly available information that Newmont has an advanced feasibility evaluation of putting a large autoclave in next door at Yanacocha. As they mine through the oxides in Yanacocha, they have arsenical copper gold sulfides at depth. We're very anxious to see that. They've completed their feasibility work. They're in the process of evaluating how they finance to put that in. The technology will work. It's going to be the first time maybe at this scale, at this elevation in the Andes. So what we want to watch is what are the capex costs and what are the operating costs on this, because it'll be a good benchmark, and we believe a very logical way to process these type sulfides. Because just in northern Peru alone, as well as elsewhere in the world, there's a tremendous amount of copper gold locked up in these arsenical copper gold sulfides. So.
Right. Now, I mean, away from that, I mean, as you noted, and as current shareholders I'm sure know, I mean, your recent drill holes, you started drilling much cleaner material in the skarn, and you hit a bunch of porphyry dikes. And one thing, I mean, if you can walk us through what the plan is in terms of like where's the drill phase going. But the other thing I'm curious about, I mean, you look at the last couple of sets in particular, you had fairly large porphyry dikes in the holes, and one of the things about this whole area, and there's 2 or 3 deposits, cheek by jowl here. These systems, it's not a big secret, it's understood. The model that the driver for them, the heat source, is generally a porphyry. Nobody ever hit a porphyry before. These dikes, is that the porphyry, or is that, do you think, quite close to the, reputed, rumored, inferred porphyry that's always supposed to be in there but nobody hit before?
Yeah, well, let's start first just with the drill plan. The drilling to date has largely been dictated on where we have permits, and our initial permits were those that were held by the mine. So the drilling has been in close, tight to the mine, which means that we have in the upper portions of the hole, the high sulfidation mineralization, and then a skarn environment beneath that.
Right.
As we move to the north, we will get away from the influence from the high sulfidation and move into more pure skarn. And what we anticipate will be the drivers, the intrusive centers or porphyry centers that could be driving this. What we see is geophysically, we see a distinct pattern of magnetic lows surrounded by magnetic highs. And in this type of terrain, it's the same terrain that we made our Hakira discovery in the
right.
south years ago on this. Those magnetic highs tend to represent hornfels or skarn developed around an intrusive center. If you're in non-receptive rocks, the porphyry center is that low. And when we're in the carbonates, that high is your potential skarn target. So we like
right.
the ring of high around the outside as potential high-grade skarn. Right. And then we pay attention to that low to see if we have a porphyry that's driving it. Our hole 26 was one of the first holes that we managed to drill out far enough to the north to test one of these magnetic lows. We, quite frankly, were anticipating we might see more porphyry-style mineralization in it, and we had the pleasant surprise to hit that really encouraging breccia that we've been showing to a lot of people.
Right.
473 meters of 1.16% copper with 0.2 gold in it. And even though it wasn't a porphyry-style mineralization, these styles of breccia are generally associated with the porphyries, and we see a sulfide assemblage of chalcopyrite boronate indicating we're getting closer to source.
Right.
So to us, it's very much a proof of concept. It's also a very nice intercept,
yeah.
and it's completely outside our resource. So that's just a hole by itself. So with additional drilling around that, we should be able to convert resource on that. And I think a hole that's really overlooked in what we've been reporting is the last hole we reported, which was hole 30. And that was a 500-meter step out to the northwest. It was drilled where it was at because we had an old pad that had it was permitted so we could drill from there.
Okay.
We didn't intentionally step that far out. It was just
right.
the point that we could drill from. We're really on the far edge of what we anticipate should be the zone of mineralization.
So on the other side?
On the other side.
Okay.
And it's altered from top to bottom on the hole. The mineralization, the bottom 300 meters of the hole is about 0.4 copper equivalent. Okay. So marginal ore grade, but not bad at all for being that far out, and right. very much a proof of concept. What we see is a lot of endoskarn and porphyry dikes. We think they're the type dikes that are generally related with the system, but not the principal driver of the system. So that zone halfway in between that step out and the right. main area drilling and to the north is where we see the most favorable geophysics settings. So we think that's on the edge of where we want to go, and to us it's a great proof of concept that we'll see more skarn-like, more porphyry-like, and remarkably low arsenic in that hole.
So and how, timing-wise, I mean, how close are you in terms of permitting or being able to extend the drilling in those directions?
To extend to the north, it'll be onto ground that we control completely ourselves. It's not ground that we work together with a mine next door on it. Right. So we've submitted our own DIA. It's a Declaration of Impacto Ambiental. It's the first stage permit in Peru, which would allow us to drill from 40 drill sites right. on that. That's in. It went through the public approval process, or public presentation process, which is sometimes the trickiest part to get through. We went through that successfully. It's now in the queue to be evaluated. Our best guidance is about September. We should be able to move onto that ground. And to be able to drill on that, in addition to having the permit approved, we have to have ownership of the surface or surface rights agreement. Okay. So we're in the process right now of purchasing ground in that area. We have enough today that we could start drilling. We'd like to get a little bit more before we tip our hand on what we're looking at there.
Okay. So I mean, there you have it. I mean, keep in mind that Regulus already has a very large resource. They put out a recent resource update a couple months ago, and it is a very big resource already, but there's a lot more coming. Some of the best looking target areas are ones they're just getting to now. And this is a group that has made this type of discovery in this region before, was very successful in finishing things off with a transaction. And I think odds are high that that's going to happen again this time. That's why I follow Regulus. John Black, Regulus Resources, REG on the venture. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for making the trip.
Yep, thanks for having us up again.
Sounds like things are really going to heat up this year as you get into the area where I know you've always really wanted to be drilling.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're very anxious. The resource we put out, it's a great resource as you mentioned, but to us it's an interim resource. We're looking towards the next one. So.
Sounds great.
Excellent.
Thanks for coming by.
Great.